Hi, thanks for tuning in to Coffee Talk Thursday. I am Cecilia Manella, and I hop on here every single week to share some ideas around how to improve your mental health wellness. Today, I'm going to chat a bit about relationships. And this might be a little bit of a longer coffee talk as I explore some language that we're using around relationships. Now, there are a lot of people who are struggling in relationships right now. It's the impact of the pandemic and all the isolation and all the stress that we've been living under is really difficult on relationships. And there's a lot of people who are separating or thinking about separating or in the midst of a divorce. And I just want to talk about some of the language that we use in our relationships. So what I hear a lot of people say, and especially women, I hear them say this, I failed at this relationship, or this is another failed relationship or failed marriage. But the word failure is used in context of the relationship. Now, I want to really break this down for you and challenge you to think about this very, very differently. Now, when we talk about a relationship failing in that sense, the flip side of that means that a successful relationship is solely based on longevity. So what that means is that we attribute success, or that word success, to relationships that are just long-term, that last a really long, long time. And what we're not looking at is we're not looking at quality of relationship, we're just looking at length of relationship. Now, why is this a problem? Well, to be honest, we have not really redefined relationships and marriage very much since the beginning of time. And we're using a very old construct in a very new world. And why does that not work? Why does it not work to use an old ideology or an old approach to relationships or how we describe relationships in our current world? Well, the number one reason is that we live longer. So we used to, especially as women, would mostly die at childbirth. I mean, we were lucky as women to make it to 40. And if you made it to 40, you were considered to be an old hag. Like, you were considered to be very old, because the concept of longevity with women was around childbearing years. So the ability to have children. So we have thousands of years of this concept, this construct around relationships. And we're bringing that into our current world. Well, now our life expectancy is into our 80s. So we're no longer an old hag at 40. And so all these things have changed in how we see ourselves, our health, our mental health, physical health, and how long we live. But we've not really thought about reconstructing how we define relationships. Now we have to do that. We have to engage in a critical idea or critical thinking about how we see relationships. And longevity is not the measure of success. Because people can be miserable together for a very long time, 45 years, 50 years, 60 years together, and everyone's celebrating, but we're not asking about the quality of that relationship. Now, when a relationship comes to an end and we use the word failure, what that does is it erases anything that relationship ever accomplished that might have been positive, that would have been life-giving, that would have been about growth, that would have been about connection and love. And what we do is we get rid of the entire narrative of why you were this person to begin with. But there's a whole love story that exists in that relationship. And there are potentially children in that relationship or grandchildren in that relationship. There's growth, personal growth, or being able to support each other. There's so much good that happens in a relationship that if we just use the word failure, what we're doing is disregarding everything that happened in that relationship. So I really encourage you to think about your relationship differently, or even how we talk about relationships a little bit differently. That just because something comes to an end, it doesn't necessarily make it a failure. It means it's come to its end. For whatever reason, it comes to its end. But it doesn't make the entire process, the entire years or time together, a complete failure, because you are disregarding the growth that you've done in that relationship. You're disregarding everything that you've learned. You're disregarding the love, the connection, the struggles, the learning, the lessons, everything that comes from that relationship. There's so much good stuff in there. So when we slap a label on it and call it failure because it's come to an end, you're robbing yourself of the ability to take those things forward with you in your life. Relationships end. It's just what happens. And, celebrating just because people have been together forever and not asking about the quality of that relationship is problematic. And it is a very old construct. So I want you to really think about what is valuable to you in a relationship. And do you value longevity? And is that the only measure of the things that you're actually valuing? Or are there other things that you can value within that relationship? Are there other things that you can gain from a relationship despite the fact that maybe it's coming to an end that would prevent you from calling it a failure? Because it's not a failure. You're not a failure. The relationship isn't a failure. It's come to an end point. For whatever reason, it's come to an end point. And I know it's hard and I know it's really difficult. And you're not doing yourself any service by calling it a failure. So there's tons of things to learn in relationships, and there's tons of things to explore and find out about yourself and take with you when a relationship comes to an end. And getting rid of the word failure is going to help you immensely in moving forward and constructing the life that you actually want. So I hope that was helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you again next week, Thursday, for Coffee Talk.